Hello there everyone and welcome back to Music That Doesn't Suck, the place where we talk about music that is not actually terrible while I'm poorly lit. With that being said, let's to the Stony and Brave and it got a set and beautiful Terry Ramini.
Hello girls and boys, how's it going?
Look
Very
at
glad to be
that, he
back.
finally got his own shot.
Yes,
How
I'm
fancy.
privileged to have my own shot.
Yeah, what are you, white? So now, what are we going to be talking today about?
So today, keeping up with Soundgarden Week,
Oh yes, indeed.
which is an event that has been happening across the world.
Starting yesterday.
It's starting yesterday here at the channel,
Yes.
where we use our instances with you guys to honor a fantastic band that is Soundgarden.
Indeed it is.
And the question is Soundgarden the best band from the 90s?
Good question. I didn't know that was the topic. I knew that we were about to talk about the Soundgarden, but actually a good point. Is it?
Don't know. I think we're gonna figure it out throughout this 1 hour that we have to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's see if we can figure it out. So, should we
Something
begin?
happened there.
What happened?
Don't
Oh
know.
yeah, they stopped recording locally. Yeah, no worries.
Beautiful.
So we're still a live stream, allegedly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So take us to your shot because I'm gonna read it back.
So, first and foremost, girls and boys, if you don't know Soundgarden, what are you doing with your life? You should know them by now. But they are a band usually put alongside a bunch of grunge
Yeah.
bands from the 90s. But
Yep.
honestly, I think I'm gonna raise that as the beginning of the conversation. Do you think that Soundgarden is actually grunge?
First and foremost, how would you describe grunge?
Nirvana.
Yeah.
That's my description of grunge.
Okay.
Don't ask me to go deeper than that.
Alright. So if Nirvana is grunge, does Soundgarden sounds like Nirvana? Something close.
Not really.
Not necessarily speaking exactly the same, but does it sound similar to Nirvana?
He had these moments to have some similarities.
Like what? Having electric guitars, drums, and bass?
Yeah, those are present on both bands.
Yeah. Also, what else? Singing vocals?
They exist on both bands as well.
Yes. Human beings
Allegedly.
that happen to breathe air. Just saying, no, that there is no correlation, man. The sound is completely different. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to be ridiculous, because it's like comparing, I don't know, B.B. King versus Behemoth.
There's some correlations there. There are guitars.
Of course, human beings. Yeah, but it makes no sense, man. And I think Nirvana is grunge. It sounds like grunge.
Mhm.
That's in my head as well, the sound of grunge.
Mhm.
But in the case of Soundgarden, I don't know if it fills gaps or if it actually fits in the grunge category, because their music is very different from Nirvana's.
To begin with, it's heavier. I think most of their stuff is.
It is heavier.
There's quite a lot. There's more correlation between Soundgarden and metal than
A
there
little
is
bit,
between
a little bit.
Soundgarden and Nirvana.
Yeah, because it's not that we're saying that Soundgarden is a metal band,
It isn't.
but it's closer to the heavier genres of rock music than Nirvana ever was.
Yeah.
Because what would be the heaviest song by Nirvana? Heart-shaped box.
Perhaps. Yeah.
That's a good track.
It is a good song.
Yes. Yeah, but I cannot think of a heavier hit.
But even that, even though it's a little bit on the heavier side, there's not a lot of correlation between that song and Soundgarden still, even though it's a little bit heavier.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because the guitars are trashier. The sound it's a grungy sound. And
Yeah.
Soundgarden doesn't really sound like. I don't even know why they are put in the same box.
Because they
heart-shaped
come
box.
because they come from the same place,
Mm.
from the same. They come from the same period as well.
Mm.
They're part of the alleged same movement. They were promoted by the same people and pushed forward based on the same principles.
Mhm.
So that's the only reason why. Because the same what happens with Alice in Chains, which is always a common point of discussion here on the channel. Because they also happen to be part of the grunge movement, but
Yeah.
do they sound like Nirvana?
Not
Because
really.
I can give a little bit more credit to Pearl Jam, for example,
Mhm.
them sounding more grungy
Mhm.
than Soundgarden and Alice in Chains.
Yeah, because there's a lot more correlation between those two.
I agree. There
And
is
even
actual...
what's her face? King's X. Also, I think it fits kind of on that box that is not necessarily grunge,
Yeah,
but not
but it's not
necessarily
rock,
hard rock.
or metal. It's something in between.
Yeah.
It's probably what could be considered alternative rock.
The thing is that
And even that term is super vague, man.
yeah, because what is now considered as alternative rock is very far from those as well. Because if
Yeah,
you get your bands such as
Incubus?
Incubus, yeah, I think it's Incubus.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Incubus. Regardless,
Whatever.
can you find any correlation between Alice in Chains and Incubus, for instance? So I don't think they are alternative rock.
Nope. By any means.
So I think those three bands they should be kind of in a category of their own.
Agreed.
Alice in Chains, King's X, and
Soundgarden.
Soundgarden, because they have elements in different measures, but they have elements of metal. All of them have elements of prog, and I think Soundgarden is probably the one that has more prog to it.
I don't know, because King Sex has plenty as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Soundgarden, for example, Super Known, their biggest hit is Feel to the Ring with time signature changes.
Yeah.
Interesting and non-conventional chord progressions.
Yeah.
Even the tuning of the guitars are all over the place.
Yeah.
The instrumentation is very weird and wide. For example, Spoonman.
Yeah.
The beginning is with pans
And spoons.
and spoons, so
Very fitting.
They're very fitting, but it's not. It's far from being conventional.
Yeah.
So yeah, aren't you intrigued with today's mix?
Yeah, we haven't introduced it yet. So would you do us the favor to introduce us to this mix?
Yeah, today's mix is actually a concoction that I developed here. I have not decided for a proper name for it. Look at that, it's getting in the way.
Proper framing.
Proper framing. No, we're on fire. Yeah, I haven't decided for a name for it, but let's call it for today Old Town Leftover.
Okay.
So or Old Town Waste.
I have to say that it looks really bad.
It looks terrible, man. But it's a very good drink. I will
Yeah.
explain to you. First, try it first.
Yeah, so it's all good. Yeah.
It's a good drink.
It is.
The thing is that, well, first and foremost, is whiskey, blended whiskey. It fares better with rye, because this is a little bit more, a little bit stronger in scent.
Yeah.
Baileys, and what's it, coffee liqueur?
Kahlua.
Kahlua.
Yeah.
So you mix them, the three of them is 2 ounces of whiskey, half an ounce of the other two guys, and it's actually good.
Yeah, it is.
You need to put some ice on it.
Yeah.
The issue is that I haven't found a better way to make the combination, especially with Baileys. Baileys, since it's based on it's Irish cream, so as soon as you pour something else that is not Baileys, it starts to break.
Yeah, and that's what gives it
Doesn't
the
look
ugly
necessarily.
look.
Yeah,
Yes.
it kind of looks dirty, but it's actually very tasty.
Yeah.
The issue is that I
It's
haven't
a
found.
dirty old town.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I like it. That's a dirty old town. Yeah, it's just kind of messed up. But yeah, it's still learning curve, but it's a good drink.
It is indeed. But
I
then
recommend it because it kind of has the flavor of a cake.
kinda.
Yeah,
Yeah, coffee flavored.
coffee flavored.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this whiskey is kind of
Yeah.
intense.
Yes.
It's
in a
not
good
that-
way. In a good
Yeah,
way.
it's simply that I wasn't expecting to be this strong. It's a Japanese whiskey that I had laying around. So where? So Soundgarden. First and foremost, let's start from the Super Known album, which
Okay.
is their most popular one.
Yes.
What do you think of it? Masterpiece.
I think
Their best.
I don't even think it's their best, being very honest.
Which one?
I think that the
Bad Motor?
the Bad Motor
Finger.
Motor Finger
Yes.
is
It's a better album.
it's a better album. I think the highlights of Super Unknown, the Black Hole Sun being definitely one of them.
Yeah, but
I do think the Black Hole Sun is one of their best songs,
yeah.
but Bad Motor Finger is basically very solid. Every single song is very good.
It is
I think
very
it's
good.
heavier. I think it's a heavier album.
Which one? Bad Motor?
Bad Motor Finger.
Yeah, it is a little bit darker as well.
Yeah.
The scope and the way that the album feels and it projects the energy that it projects is a little bit more angrier.
It's a little bit more aggressive.
The
Yes.
thing is that Super Unknown is a little bit sadder sounding, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit more depressing. And here Steve Lemon is saying, King Sex. Yeah, great band. For those of you who don't know, it's also a 90s band
Yeah.
that deserves way more praise than they get.
Yeah.
They're a fantastic band, and they are similar to the heavier parts of Soundgarden.
Yeah. There are some similarities. I wouldn't say that they sound the same.
No. But both of them have great singers.
Yeah.
So
True.
yeah, totally. So now coming back to this, I think Super Unknown is slightly sadder sounding. It's more depressive.
But I like they going angry.
Yep.
I think they do angry very well, and I like Chris Cornell singing angry.
And I think his vocal performance on Super Unknown is better than in Bad Motorfinger. In my opinion, because it's a little bit more passionate, probably because he was going through all sorts of personal hazards at that period.
Yeah.
But during that period, in general, I think it's a great showcase of vocal prowess.
Yeah.
Not because he's going to his limits, but because he does it in a way that makes sense and it's extremely musical. And it's something that is not that common in 90s music, or at least in commercial 90s music.
Yeah, because look, I think the Super Unknown is a little bit more in vein with 90s stuff. And I don't mean that necessarily in a good way.
What do you mean by that?
I think, for instance, the singing style, even for Black Hole Sun, the most known track of the album, we were even discussing this because you sang the track.
Yes.
You did a vocal cover of it these days. It's in one of the channels.
Yes.
And the main voice is very
Kind of low effort.
low effort, and that's kind of like one of the hallmarks of grunge. I think
Good
grunge,
point,
on the most
good
part,
point.
kind of has that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the kind of stuff that I'm not necessarily a fan of Soundgarden doing that kind of things, because it's kind of underusing.
Yeah, you got such a great singer.
Exactly, and of course he kind of makes up for it on the second voices, because the layering of the voice is very cool.
He's very cool.
The other voices are actually using quite a lot of his prowess.
I agree.
But the main one is actually kind of he could. We know that he can do better.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a bad performance from him, because it makes sense. It's serving the song.
It is.
Because the song is so weird and kind of eerie and kind of all over the place. But I don't see that song in particular having a much more acrobatic singing, such as I don't know, Spoonman, or Fell on the Black Days.
Yeah.
That one has a much more athletic
Yeah.
performance from the vocals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, great track.
Yeah. I think most of the first album of Bad Motorfinger is a little bit more passionate. As you put it, and I think it's a good way to frame it, because I think Chris Cornell is a fantastically expressive singer, and when he's expressing very intense emotions, those emotions become very present in the singing.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I prefer that album, because I think it's a more intense, emotionally speaking, album.
Good point. And also, what do you think about the level of input that his vocals has on the way that the music develops?
It's huge.
Gigantic,
It's
right?
huge,
It's one of those bands that the vocalist is probably the one member that, basically speaking, and hashtag is not that Chris Cornell is Soundgarden, okay? But it's one of those rare occasions on which, without him, there is no Soundgarden.
No, impossible.
Get me right? It's like Linkin Park. I don't like Linkin Park, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Without Chester, damn.
Yeah, because allegedly Linkin Park still exists and is ongoing, but
Well, you see what happened.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
but whatever. So, how much of the music now we've established this, not only was influenced by Chris Cornell's approach to singing, but even the texture of his voice, because it's also something that you see, for example, on tracks like "The Day I Tried to Live." The day I tried to live. He goes that high.
Yeah.
The entire track is kind of pushed forward by that increment in pitch.
Yeah, like the whole band was responding to him.
But even his vibrato, because
Yeah.
he does that naturally, which is fantastic. And even the track kind of has that. They respond to it, to his voice in a way, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I feel that it's even the craziness in the structure of the compositions, the whole thing with the time signature changes. I think it also comes from how he sings and how he thinks of music. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to expose this. Sense.
Give it a try.
But the thing is, he seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, he has a crazy eye.
Yeah, let me start from that foundation.
Yeah.
And I feel that he's singing in Soundgarden specifically because we see it differently in other projects. He always sings well, but I think Soundgarden is where he was freer to sing and to create his vocal parts in a way that was his. And that's the impression that I get, at least.
Okay, I might differ a little bit because if we have his time with Audioslave as the most commercial effort ever,
Yeah.
because it clearly was, man.
Yeah.
That was a band designed to drop hit after hit,
Yeah.
and they did because their music is very straightforward, to the point, and no BS, and fun to listen to. Good introduction to rock music in general. We will discuss that later on.
Yeah.
But if we have that as the point on which he was like the most focused on writing music that would be accessible,
Yeah.
I don't know if Soundgarden is his least accessible, because his solo efforts Particularly the first album, Euphoria Morning. Totally recommend. It's a great album in general. Yeah, actually, no stinkers. Later albums are not as consistent with the quality.
But I think he carried some of Soundgarden with him for the solo project, didn't he?
He did, but the sound of those albums, particularly Euphoria, it even does happy.
Somehow.
Well, wherever
Yeah.
his version of happy is, right? And of course it doesn't sound happy, but it's the stuff that Soundgarden, at least in my opinion, never did. They are quite in the ecosystem of what is Soundgarden. Get me?
Yeah.
And when you listen to his stuff, once again, Euphoria Morning, you're gonna find that some of the tracks are like, I know that it's him because of his voice, man.
Yeah.
But it sounds very out there, and it reminds me a lot to Jeff Buckley. A little bit, but not a lot. I said a lot, but a little bit. I mean, a lot in the sense of the sound being kind of similar there. But of course, there is no correlation whatsoever. It's just that you get this tiny thing that makes you remember Jeff Buckley's approach to composition.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's interesting. So I think that his solo career is even more. It's a little bit crazier and less accessible than Soundgarden.
You think so?
Because Soundgarden is more. You get that, yes.
Yeah.
And his solo stuff has no hard hitting stuff, man. It's good music, but it's more it's broader in approach. Yeah, because what's the name of that one? Just going to save the world. It's the opener for that track. As soon as you listen to that one, you're like, what the hell? It begins like a Soundgarden track, but then it morphs into something else. Okay, don't know what this is. And it's interesting to see that it happened in between the releases of the last proper effort by Soundgarden during the 90s and the release of the first Soundgarden album. Soundgarden, Audioslave.
Yes.
So you see that you got both of those. It's like the path
that led
in
to
between.
it. Yeah.
Get me?
Makes sense.
So yeah, have you listened to that album?
Oh, I listened to that album, but I have to
not
admit
enough.
that I'm not super well versed on his solo stuff. I'm way more familiar with his Audioslave and Soundgarden stuff. I am familiar with the solo, but not. I wouldn't say that I listened to it on its entirety.
I recommend you listening to Euphoria Morning. You're gonna love it for real, and everybody watching, of course. It's a very good album. It has everything, including what you didn't expect.
Yeah.
It has a fantastic, beautiful ballad that is called "Preaching a Friend for the End of the World" or something like that.
I want to know. Yeah.
That's a good song, man.
Yes.
But also has that one. I don't remember the name, but she's gonna change me or something like that. That's also a very cool song, cool album opener. Yeah. Even has some country, for real. So like, damn. And also his latest, well, not latest, his last solo album is also very good. It's acoustic.
Full on.
Full on. It's to the top of the mountain or something like that, and it's actually happy.
Like happy.
Because he was actually enjoying life.
Okay, was after all of the.
Yeah, he was actually. He has a song with his daughter in the album and stuff, and then he mysteriously, you know what happened.
Yeah, well, we don't know exactly what
we
happened.
don't know what happened, but they told us a part of the story. So yeah, kind of funny, right? Because it kind of has some relationship with Chester.
Yes.
I'm gonna stop there because we can get into very spiky territory. But for those of you who know, you know. So yeah.
So Ben, Soundgarden.
Yeah.
One of the things that I truly like about Soundgarden, the way that they approach to music, is that they are very heavy on prog elements.
Yes.
But they never kind of cross the barrier to be full on prog.
Yeah, good point.
Their music is full on rock music.
Yeah.
Like
that little piece of sparkle, right?
Yeah, but it's very present. But still, is always the rock and roll badass element first.
Yeah, which is way more accessible.
Yeah, and it feels like the incorporation of let's say, one of the quintessential prog elements is time signature changes. The way that is incorporated into their music is very natural. Yeah. It's very, very natural. It doesn't feel like and you even make the comment that in your research You saw that they kind of never truly thought about it, and it shows.
Yeah, they didn't. During the production of Super Known, that album was filtering with time signature changes.
It is.
The thing is that I don't remember exactly who was the one who said it. I think it was a guitar player. In an interview, he said that when they were producing the album, they didn't realize that they were doing all sorts of time signature changes. They simply...
It's where the music took them.
Yes, and once they got ready to record the album, of course you gotta do it to tempo so everything can sync.
Yeah.
They started to realize, wait a second. That's why some of them feel even more off. Because they didn't do it with the intent of having those.
Yeah, it wasn't done mathematically.
No, it was done
out
of their... It wasn't their brains, it was their spleen.
But look, you even take us in kind of like a tangent to using this, because you see, for instance, on the ultra technical stuff that has become very popular in certain circles nowadays, you see a very mathematical approach to music. You see, there are bands that made their entire career based on that.
And the gimmick of being complex.
Yeah, and then doing things mathematically. And it feels stiff on the most part. Like it doesn't have that musical flow.
Kind of like a groove, right?
Because it works. Because it's done in a way that it works.
Yes.
But now comparing it to the way that Soundgarden implemented time signatures, that feels a lot more natural, a lot more subservient to the music itself. It simply seems to me like it's a better approach. What do you think about that?
It's look, I happen to be in between two places because I like both styles. I like the complex and the intellectual flexing that is writing something quite complex, musically speaking. But at the same time, I know the trap that comes with it because it could be a little bit too indulgent. On the other hand, I love the idea of letting music feel organic, and if it has to change it, it will change in a way that the music would pull you in, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes doing it that way also lands in places in which it's not necessarily correctly done, if you know what I mean. Sometimes it's kind of forced, sometimes it's not necessarily precise is the word, because it's not forced. I will take that back, because doing it in a natural way is the total opposite to being forced.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's done in a sloppy fashion. Because it's not actually done with the intellect involved. If that makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Because the idea is there, but not the math that is required to get it done.
But do you think the math is needed?
I think you need to know how to do both, so you can actually know when to wear the mathematician hat and when to go artistic. Because you need both. When you are composing something that takes you to a point in which you need a time signature change.
Yeah.
Sometimes the plan is to make it super abrupt, like in Black Hole Sun, that 4/4 then 4/5.
Yeah.
During the instrumental tan.
Yeah, it's very noticeable.
It's super noticeable, but it's done in purpose. But that's a good example on one that is not necessarily done. It happened organically.
Yeah.
And they did it and it worked, and then they did the math. Oh shit, we gotta do this, otherwise we won't be able to synchronize the hits.
Yeah.
So it feels weird because of that. But that's kind of like a happy accident. But if you're doing something more complex, you need to be precise. Because that one is just one time signature change, but it's so monumentally clear in your head that without the proper syncing, the next section will just bang, bang. There is a space in between drum sections. Without any form of guiding rhythm, how could you land the singing voice? Because when I was recording my take, I also had to struggle with that one because I didn't have the click. So you can imagine. Super important. I don't know how they did that live. Probably they had a click, or they were so well rehearsed, which is what I lean more over. They were that well rehearsed that they kind of had the gut feeling. Because I don't see them being a band that would use backing tracks, my friend.
No, it doesn't look the type.
The music doesn't need it, man. They already have the full orchestration with them.
The band is everything that you hear.
Yes, exactly. Which is actually a good thing. Because they're capable of producing the entire thing by the four of them.
And they have this kind of a emotional element to the performances that's kind of responding on the most part to the singing.
Yeah.
And this interactive aspect of music making happens best when every single instrument is being played
Correctly.
on the spot.
Yes.
Because of course different types of music requires different approaches for this kind of stuff, but I think for the kind of music that they do, that's the best scenario, that's the best presentation.
I agree 100%, because Soundgarden, what makes them very interesting is how well layered the music feels.
Even though it's 5 people, right?
No, they were 4.
There were four people.
The
Yes.
thing is that you got Chris Cornell playing the guitar as well, and he played the guitar more often than you can imagine. So that's why their music felt so kind of thick, because it was well layered. The arrangements between the guitars it's always excellent. You never see them clashing.
Yeah.
The drumming very, very consistent, fun, powerful, insanely punchy.
Yeah, and daring on the right times.
Yes, because he knew that this is not. I'm not playing Band Graph Generator, so I'm gonna keep it correct. But when I had the chance, boom, Black Hole Sun once again has plenty of fantastic moments for drums.
Yeah,
because they're done that. You heard the Black Hole Sun in your head, because that's a delivery, man.
Yeah, and on the most part, it's very solid, but when it takes the center stage, it delivers.
It delivers and pushes, man. You can even feel your.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's so boom. Now, when it comes to the recording of that album, because we're preparing more stuff related to that album. Up until this point, I have done some research regarding the production. And one of the things that I saw was that when recording the album, Chris Cornell allegedly broke 4 microphones.
For real? How? Why?
The pressure, man. The thing is that the producer, I found a thread on Gears Lots. That's the name. You space my ass. On Gears Lots, which is a forum for nerds like me. It's all about recording and production and stuff, right? And gear. And somebody was asking if anybody knew something about the production of that album, and the producer actually popped in, and he started to answer questions from the fans. And he dropped a little bit of trivia, saying that they spent several days looking for the right microphone, because they wanted a particularly precise sound, and the signal pad that they needed to use. Signal pad is the sequence of boxes, devices.
Yeah.
Look, you get the microphone. Imagine the microphone, right? This is a microphone. This is a much better example.
Yes.
So the microphone, you can see the cable here. This cable is connected to something known as a preamp, which is gonna make wherever the microphone captures louder. So it could be sent into wherever, for example, a mixing desk, a recording device, or even another speaker. So you can put stuff after the preamp, like an equalizer, a compressor, which are devices that we use to mess around with the sound, right? So, according to this guy, he said that they had this particular sound in their heads that they ended up. He didn't remember exactly what they did, but he just said that it was ridiculously funny. The amount of stuff that they used in the end was stupid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was like, I don't know exactly what we did, because we kept plugging stuff in until we got that particular sound, because he wanted to get the breathiness and the inspirations, and you can hear those in the track. And even on the album.
I'll even ask this from the producer's perspective.
Yes.
That's kind of hard to attain, right? Because
in a clean way,
seeing how powerful his vocals are on the powerful parts, to be able to get the subtle aspects of the breathing and stuff like that.
That's why they were. Imagine the amount of compressors and the stuff.
Many layers of.
Man, because if you overdo one compressor, it shows.
Yeah, whenever he goes.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
But if you do little levels of compression, one is going to react on top of the other. So I think that's the reason why they ended up with that hilarious signal pad. So that's one thing. And secondly, he said that he broke like 4 or 5 microphones.
But
because of he said that he was a very powerful singer, so he could do it for hours a day. So he actually had plenty of stamina. So the microphones broke under the pressure, the constant pressure. Like, yeah, I can see that happening, especially because I think they ended up using a U47, a Neumann, but a few.
So he broke a few noise.
Yeah, because they rent them. So you can imagine, you're like, ah!
Oh, well.
But it was back in the day in which you can actually had access to budgets. The budget cut has been kind of ridiculous in the last few decades.
But he was already a big name at that point in time, right?
No,
the
they were
production-
signed. They were signed to a big label, man. They were the biggest Super Known is the album that
Yeah.
Mars.
Mhm.
They were already big enough,
Mhm.
but this is the album that the label actually threw. Okay, we gotta make these guys. They tried to turn them into Nirvana, success-wise,
Never happened.
but it succeeded.
Success-wise, but it's not
No,
Nirvana.
no. It was nothing close to it.
Yeah.
In popularity. It's impossible.
But musically speaking,
Yeah, it's not even funny. So a piece of trivia, interesting, right?
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine he must be I can see even the amount of work that went into capturing his voice correctly, because there's so much going on when it comes to vocal performance that it would be a waste not getting the perfect recording.
And I see exactly why the producer followed that pattern. Because you got such a great expressive singer, find a way to get the nuances of his voice, man. Yeah, because and probably that's the reason why the album is so cherished and so successful, man. Because it actually, even though it's not their best as a piece of music, as a whole compendium, it has soul. There is something about it that makes it special, man.
Yeah.
If you go nitty-gritty, of course, Bad Motorfinger has better songs, but as a whole, it's a better album as a piece of music. But nobody beats The Day I Tried to Live.
Yeah, and Super No, I think is a better production. I think it
In
was
general,
a
sounds
produced
better as
album.
well, because you got the drums are insane.
They're excellent.
Yeah, but the sound is boom. Everything, dun, 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 black hole,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah, it's super punchy, but not too big. They're big. They're quite big.
But it's not gigantic. It's not like album.
No, it isn't.
No, it's very cool.
Yeah, because I think they found the sweet spot in between making it sound super big, super punchy, and it's of course very processed. It doesn't sound raw,
Yeah.
but it's not overly processed.
No.
Because it doesn't have that feel of the Black Album, for instance,
No,
which
no,
is the basically synonym to overly processed.
Processed.
It doesn't have that. It still feels raw, emotionally speaking.
Okay.
Not the sound. The sound doesn't feel raw, of course. It's very doctored, but it has that element of rock and roll wildness.
Yeah. For lack of a better term, I get you.
Yeah.
I would say a little bit. It's still rough. It still preserves that roughness that is
But rough by design.
by design.
Yeah.
Because it feels controlled, right? It's not. It's a poor recording. This is the best we get. No, the good God. No. This is done in purpose because another thing. When I was recreating the sound of his vocals, especially when I was mixing it, one of the elements that are part of his style, and well, not his style per se, but the sound of his vocals in the entirety of his career as a singer is distortion. He was such a loud singer that it was common for him to push the preamps that I already mentioned to their limits quite often. And back in the day, they had access, especially someone like them back in the mid 90s, they had access to very good stuff.
Yeah.
So the good stuff sounds better when you push it. So if you pay attention, whenever you listen to, for example, Black Hole Sun, when he goes Black Hole Sun, it feels really like
There's a crunchiness to it.
yeah, there is crunchiness. It's not the result of it's not post-processing. It sounds like they track it like that.
It was the suffering of the preamps.
The preamp and the mic were like yeah, it was that loud. So it's a very integral part of his sound. And if you listen to everything that he recorded by his own or with Audioslave, his voice always reaches that point of saturation, which is the actual term. And that saturation adds plenty of the crunchiness that is very musical.
A lot of character.
Plenty of character.
Yeah.
And it reminds me quite a lot to the sound of Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Because Robert Plant is also he was also super loud, man.
Yeah.
So
But
it
look,
has that.
I feel that looking at Robert Plant versus not versus because
No, but it's a
there's no
comparison.
point.
A comparison. Yeah.
A comparison. Robert Plant and Chris Cornell, it feels like Chris Cornell is using this way more deliberately. I think he's a way more controlled singer.
I think it's a good point. I think it's because back in the days of Led Zepp, technology was more grungy.
Yeah,
Get me?
yeah.
Because they use gear that right now is coveted, but why? It's not because it was used by Robert Plant. No, it's because it sounds like that. And what is that? Little threshold. It's headroom. Sorry, headroom is how loud a signal can go before it begins to do the crunchiness. Those items were very, very, very bad when it comes to the amount of. There is a cherry.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to understand what was inside of my drink.
The thing is that the cherry didn't float, man. So no, the whole thing was kind of rushed. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, but it's a black cherry. So like oh look, I found.
There's something black in my drink.
I'm kind of squishy. No, it's a cherry.
Okay.
Because cherries and whiskey are match made in heaven.
Yeah.
But well,
coming back.
Yeah, those devices had this crunchiness almost by default, and back in the day of Led Zeppelin, they didn't have that much of headroom, so it was basically by default the sound of wherever. Yeah. As soon as it reaches a certain point of sound pressure level, it will create the. Chris Cornell's recordings have that perceived control over the. And I don't rule out the idea of him being that acute to the art of recording voices.
Yeah.
That he actually played with it.
I think
he realized it.
I think he was singing to that sound.
Me too.
Being very honest.
Because he's very consistent on every recording by him.
And it's used in the moments within the songs that you see it happening. They are the moments that make sense.
Yes.
They are moments that work.
It feels like he used it almost like a guitar pedal, right?
Yeah, because it's not luck.
No.
It's way too consistent for it to be by accident.
Very precise, because it happens when it has to, right? Like, and you're because it's not open. It sounds. One of the things that happens with that kind of saturation is also a little bit of compression. Compression is the spikes in volume are kind of lowered. Or equalize with the lower points, because it simply cannot go louder.
Yeah.
So the only resource for the energy to go out is by squashing itself and being pushed out. It's like in mine I don't know. In mine like a hose. You put your finger. That's compression.
Yeah.
Depending on how you push it, it's the same amount of water.
Yeah.
But it's.
No, actually, that's a good way to put it.
It's projected in a different fashion.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, and it sounds like that, right?
And I think even though he's very respected as a singer, I think people don't often talk about his singing as being technical. Usually the way that he's praised as if he has a nice voice, as he has power and projection, and of course those are true as well. But I think he usually doesn't get enough credit for being a very, very controlled singer. Because he's very good. He's very technical.
He is, but I don't know how much of that technicality is natural. Because he sounds. I can see exactly why you said such a thing, because I agree with you. The things that I don't know. I think he was that good that he even. Found a way to make it look like it was organic.
Gotcha.
Get me?
Yeah.
Because it sounds kind of wild, but when you start to study his vocal style, no. He knows what he's doing. He's not just screaming, man.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. Because the same way happens with Robert Plant. And probably, I don't know, but I think that the correlation is quite clear, man. Because they kind of have a particular similar take on how they approach their voices.
Yeah.
I consider Chris Cornell a better singer, or at least I find his vocal style much more appealing to me than Robert Plant's. Robert Plant is a fantastic singer as well, but it's not necessarily my jam. But both of them have plenty of similarities because both of them high range, big range, powerful vocals, loud as balls, but capable of delivering more sentimental, more introspective vocals as well.
I think Robert Plant is a little bit more shouty.
I don't know, because I think he's a little bit more extreme on both ends. And I think Chris Cornell has a better mid-range, mid-level. Because think of Robert Plant, when he goes soft, he goes super soft.
Yeah.
And when he goes loud, he goes
For a loud.
way too loud.
Yeah.
And Chris Cornell go both ways, but he actually has a middle, and in between.
Yeah.
Robert Plant is good time. That's the middle. It's not necessarily that in between. At least for me. What do you think?
I feel that Robert Plant, and this is just conjecture, just my own take on the matter, okay? And first and foremost, respect him quite a lot as a singer. There would be no Chris Cornell if there was no Robert Plant. So this is not even a conversation that we need to have.
Yes.
But I feel that Robert Plant was a lot more talent than he was control.
Oh, talent.
Yeah, it was way more talent than it was control.
Okay.
I think Chris Cornell is a good measure of both. I think he has a lot of talent, but he's more controlled. I think he has more control over the singing.
If I had
apparatus.
the chance to save your reputation, would you swap talent with technique?
What?
Would you swap the word talent with technique?
Well, for whom?
Or both? Because
No.
I don't know. Okay, whatever.
No, I'm talking. Singing is a skill.
Yeah.
But there's quite a lot to singing. There is also natural. Okay.
I get that.
And great singing is usually a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm calling talent the natural part.
You're calling spade a spade.
I'm calling talent the natural part, and let's call technique the stuff that you learn and develop.
Okay.
I think that Robert Plant is way more on the talent side of things than he is on the technique side of things.
Okay.
Of course, he has both, but I think that Chris Cornell is a way better balance in between having talent and technique.
I agree though.
That's my take.
No, but I agree. And I don't think it's a hot take by any means because, if you think about it, Soundgarden's music tends to have a much more, even though crazy or kind of intense vocal performances, they don't feel broken.
No.
You hear that on the record, like he pulled it off. He can pull that off in the live environment. And then also with Led Zepp, but you see that with Led Zepp, I think without sounding like an asshole, the expectation is more on the baby than it is on the precision. Get me?
Yeah. Even the music is wilder.
It
So the
is.
music itself, I'm not saying this necessarily, my comment was just a very objective analysis of singing. But even the Led Zeppelin's music is very fitting to have a wilder vocal.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this is a bad thing, it's just different styles.
I can see your point.
But
It
look,
makes sense.
just making an even closer comparison, like Chris Cornell and Jeff Buckley from the same era.
But Jeff Buckley is a way better singer.
Yeah, but he has also that kind of wild factor.
Yeah, but he's way more controlled. He has way more technique. His voice is now, for as much as Chris was a fantastic singer, Jeff Buckley is on another level.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Because that guy was, I don't know where he was.
He was nuts first
He was nuts first and foremost because his vocal style is audacious, athletic, absurd, but controlled.
And I do think that they were kind of mutually influencing one another.
Yes, because they were contemporary to each other, and actually in Euphoria Morning, his first solo record, Chris Cornell wrote a song for him after he passed away.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, I don't remember exactly which one it is. If I listen to the album, I will tell you exactly which one it is. But right now, it's out of my head. But yeah, because they were mutual friends, because they were contemporaries, and damn.
Imagine there was quite a lot of amount of respect in between them because they were both the best of
their generation. Yeah. I would say, because the great singers from the 80s were still active, but they weren't in the spotlight. Because think of Steve Perry. He broke up with he left Journey in the early 90s, and he released his first solo albums during the 94, I think, at the same time as
I'm
these
not
guys.
familiar with his solo effort.
You have heard some of his songs, and you think that they are Journey.
Okay.
it's very similar. Not similar, but being his voice, and nobody beats Steve Perry, man.
Yeah.
How no man. Yeah, no, there's no way. Not even that Filipino guy that is excellent, but no. He gets very close.
But it's uncannily similar.
Way
It's
too
very,
similar.
very similar.
Yeah, Arnel Pineda is the name.
Mm-hmm.
First of you know, Journey has had like 3 singers. Yeah, 3 singers in the entirety of their existence, and latest one. Shit. He actually was found in Filipinas. That's a very, very interesting story. Once we have an episode on Journey, which we will do,
It's gonna happen.
yeah, believe that. We'll discuss that in more depth. But it's actually a very interesting and fun story.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Think
almost like a Cinderella.
Yeah, one of those tales.
They're like, yeah, that never happened. That come on.
And even it made me think now because, well, I'm not gonna go deep into the story now, but the guy used to cover Journey.
Yep.
Now thinking on people trying to cover Soundgarden.
No,
Have you ever seen a decent cover of Soundgarden?
never in my life.
It's a hard band to
It's
pull
a
off.
very difficult band to make sound correct
Mhm.
in as a cover band.
Mm-hmm.
First, the singer.
Tough.
Yeah.
Very,
you
very
already
tough.
have a high bar to match.
Mm-hmm.
Then the effects, man.
Mm-hmm.
The use of effects is so clever
And so different.
and it's very unique, man.
Yeah,
It's and a cover band, a good one of good repute, will have to have the pedal board of the guy. Of the guy will have to have like just another pedal board just to pull off the Soundgarden
Yeah.
songs
Mm-hmm.
because of how even though they didn't use that many pedals, the use of the effects is fantastic, man.
Mm-hmm. And very unique to them.
Very unique. Think once again, Black Hole Sun is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The rotatory sound at the beginning,
Yeah.
it was done with a real life,
Rotary.
a Leslie cabinet. Our Leslie cabinet, for those of you who know, it's a speaker cabinet that was developed for organs. I have an organ behind me, but I don't have the Leslie,
Yeah.
and I hate it.
They're big, right?
They are
They're
like
very, very big.
it's like this tall,
Mm-hmm.
like this tall, and like this big,
Mm-hmm.
and or even bigger. I think they're wider.
Mm-hmm.
They have the speakers, but also you have one speaker is doing this on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and underneath there is also a rotatory thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a plate that is doing the rounds,
Yeah.
and the oscillation is controlled by a pedal.
Mm-hmm.
So when you plug an organ, you can create the vibrato effect, the thing
Yeah.
happen well, by moving the thing in front of the
Yeah.
of the speakers, and you have a piezoelectric speaker on the top that is doing the rounds as well, following the same speed as the thing covering the hole from which the output of the main speaker goes out.
Yeah.
So when you connect a guitar amplifier to that, magic happens. It's one of my dreams. I want to get a proper Leslie speaker, but
I've never seen a proper Leslie in person. I've seen it like in video and stuff like
yeah,
that.
I had the chance to work with one years ago, but how
need
much?
one.
How much? No. Well, I tried. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that you hear in Black Hole Sun that thing.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Nowadays there are plenty of boxes that allows you to get a very, very, very convincing Leslie effect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that Soundgarden ever did or performed that track live with the real thing.
No.
Because man,
Yeah.
yeah, and also the amplifiers and everything used in that record was described by this guy. I will have a video on which I will share with you all the details that I've learned that were part of the production of this album in a particular video on the production channel. So stay tuned for that one coming out next week.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be, I believe that. So yeah, final comments.
And look, one thing that I love about the Super Unknown as well is the sound of the guitars, because you mentioned now, but I think it's worth going a little bit more in depth, because the guitars, they are very nice balancing between being very aggressive, but at the same time they are polished. It's not that kind of raw sound.
Yeah, they don't sound either overly crunchy
Mm-hmm.
or like hairy,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't sound decaffeinated.
No, and I
Not
even think
wimpy.
the guitars, they are getting very, very close to heavy metal, kind of a.
But they don't
sound.
do the chuck.
No, but I'm talking like heavy metal, like,
like British.
yeah, like an early heavy metal.
Yes.
They have this aggressiveness, but polished enough without being like modern metal, which is way too overprocessed.
But it's very interesting to hear that because those bands, if I recall correctly, they adopted the Mesa Boogie. Mesa Boogie is an amplifier manufacturer, for those of you who don't know. The dual rectifier. And that guy is basically the sound of every goddamn metalcore band ever. Every modern metal band ever is that particular amplifier because it's heavy as all balls. But somewhat the 90s guys adopt them, and Soundgarden was one of them.
But it doesn't sound like modern metal guitar playing.
No, far from it. King's X, that's the dual rectifier. Think of Dogman.
Yeah. King's X sounds heavier than Soundgarden.
Yeah. Even heavier than Alice in Chains. And Alice in Chains is already a heavy as balls band.
Yeah. Bordering metal at many points in time.
In my head canon, Alice in Chains is metal.
Yeah.
Change my mind. You want. Yeah, the same what happens with King's X as well.
Yeah.
Both bands, very heavy. And Soundgarden, for as much as I try to put them closer to Alice in Chains, never.
No.
Because they are a beast of their own.
And look, I think that's the last point in time where bands actually have a very defined personality.
Agree.
Because they're the last ones.
Yeah, and look, all of them are contemporary to each other, including Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And you know who is who just by listening to 10 seconds of any of their songs.
Yeah, true.
Just like that. You know, because the difference lies not only in the composition, the tone of their guitars, the approach to drumming, the singer, the production, goddammit. Everything had a personality. What happened? I'm asking.
You want to start now?
No. That's
look, let's go back to the overall, the quintessential question. We can finish it off with it.
Yes.
Do you think the Soundgarden is the best band from the 90s?
Okay. The problem is that one of my favorite bands ever, Dream Theater, should be considered a 90s band.
I don't think Dream Theater is a 90s band.
It is because their first album released in 87 never happened. So
it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. So the official, the canon version is Imagine Worth 92. So therefore it's 90s band. Beth, if we get those guys out of the way and go for rock, more plain and simple. I think that Guns N' Roses also. That's a problem, man. Because look, I wanna say yes.
Look, I'm gonna probably create some problem now. I think Soundgarden is better than Guns N' Roses. Even if we treat them as being part of the same decade, which they are not.
They are.
I will still say that
they're not. Appetite is 87 as well.
I will still say that Soundgarden comes out on top, at least from my personal.
Is Soundgarden? But your
individual perspective.
Yeah, but that only means that you're wrong, man. Because are you implying that Soundgarden is better than Alice in Chains? Better than Alice in Chains?
No, I think they are on par with each other. They're both.
So therefore, Soundgarden is not the best from the 90s.
No, I'm saying that he's better than Guns N' Roses, which I also think that Alice in Chains is better than Guns N' Roses, from my personal, individual, and maybe wrong perspective.
The fact that you have to establish that is your own perspective already tells me that you know that is wrong. But look, in my opinion, it's a very tough spot to be in because, trying to be fair, Soundgarden is fantastic. Alice in Chains is fantastic as well. And avoiding the grammar,
the
semantics and everything.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pretend that none of the bands that I mentioned are from the 90s, okay? Because being realistic, Guns N' Roses is 80s. But late 80s, the thing is that's way too late 80s, man. But whatever, I'm not gonna get into the semantics, okay?
Yeah.
If we have to put Guns N' Roses against Alice in Chains, I don't know which one comes on top. Being very honest, because I happen to love them equally. And it's not being a fanboy. The thing is that both bands have such a unique tone to each of them.
Yeah.
Also, I consider them to be kind of underrated because of how big Nirvana and Pearl Jam became.
Yeah.
When, in my humble, totally correct opinion, these two guys are way better than them by orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
I like the underdog conundrum. That is still, if I have to put them one against the other, because King Sex is also an Irish band,
Yes.
and I don't know if they are better than them as well. Even Tool, no, but they're better than Tool.
But look, let's
I said it.
Let's change the formatting then. So rather than saying better, because that's a very tough position to be at, let's say preferred.
Preferred.
Yes.
That's also difficult for me. No, look. The thing is this: if I may say this as a closing comment, it will be this. I think that these three bands, King Sex, Alice in Chains, and Soundgarden, represent the best rock became in the 90s.
Agreed.
In every form, because you got the expansiveness and the creativity behind the music of by Soundgarden. You got the raw emotional drive behind Alice in Chains, and you got the punchiness, badass attitude that still kept alive by
King
Sex. So, in my head, the three bands are part of what kept real rock music alive in the eyes of the masses.
I agree.
Without those guys, it would be done by then.
Yeah.
Because later on, the 2000s was the beginning of probably the final apocalypse. That's kind of a badass track for a metal song. Final.
Very edgy.
Oof, man, it's gotta be metal, man. So, what will your final comment?
So just to pick
Final
now,
apocalypse.
looking at the whole preferred thing over
better for a band.
better. Huh?
It's better for a band.
Final Apocalypse.
Final apocalypse.
It has to be one of those bands.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, exactly. Nah. Look, I find the Soundgarden is very expensive. It's probably the most expensive out of the bunch.
Yeah.
I think they are more daring. Their music goes many places, and I love that about them. But personally, I think that I'm more attached to Alice in Chains. I think it's probably the one it's the band from the 90s that at least I listen to the most.
Okay.
And taking it for what it is. It's not necessarily because they are better, but I like it a lot.
Because we're forgetting Stone Temple Pilots.
I'm not super into them.
No,
they're not bad by any means,
no,
but
but because you also got Faith No More. There are
Yeah.
plenty more bands from the 90s. But I think these three guys are the ones, right?
Yeah. Because the thing is, what's the name?
Stone Temple.
Stone Temple Pilots. They're not bad by any means. They're a good band. But honestly, would you put them on the same category as the other three that we're talking about?
No, but for example, have you heard Flying Colors?
No, I think so.
It's a bunch of black dudes playing badass prog-like hard rock in the 90s.
Don't think I know.
They have a very cool song called The Cult of Personality. Badass, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it back once we're over with this because it's a very cool track.
Yeah, we can even put it on the Discord. So
Yeah.
if you follow us here, we're gonna throw it on the Discord.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, because it's also from 90s. You're like, wait a second, this is actually good. What happened?
So we're actually gonna leave you with the question: what the heck happened?
Yeah, so if you start in the 90s, you kind of see this steep decline.
Yeah. No. Deep, like,
In mainstream
badly.
rock, rock, because metal kind of had a resurgence during the 2000s.
how Soundgarden was actually kind of mainstream.
They were.
Somehow.
The people with the money, man.
Yeah.
It was the style at the time. Without having to mention the
Yeah.
versions. So,
But look, this is not the end of Soundgarden. We are still amidst Soundgarden week.
yes.
So there's more coming. This Saturday there's gonna be another barrage of uploads.
Yeah, the net is gonna be the second part of my mixing process. For the covers, so stay tuned for that one in the mixing channel.
Yeah.
It's where I actually go with bananas with effects. This actually is the important part.
So it's cool. Yeah.
It is. You're gonna see. It's kind of fun.
And next Tuesday we're also gonna be releasing other videos that's Soundgarden related. So if you're into Soundgarden, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, because like that you're gonna be notified whenever we release those videos.
That only happens on YouTube. If you're watching on Rumble, you're doing
Yes.
the right thing.
Yeah. And you don't need to worry about those stuff.
Yes.
So yes, and if you like what we're doing here, you can join us. We do this on a weekly basis. So every Thursday we're talking about music that doesn't suck, and it's always fun.
Yes.
We invite you to be a part of this conversation. And if you want to support us and
Be part of this journey.
be part of this journey, you can do it by listening to our music on Apple Music or Spotify, and also by following us on other social media such as Instagram and X. And also join our Discord, because we can keep the conversation going there. We're actually gonna put the song that he just mentioned now
Link
in
in the
Discord.
description.
It's in the description, so just join us there and we can keep the whole thing flowing.
Yes, so now as certain time we meet you, we remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that we'll see you when we see you.